Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back. So, following the by-election win for George Galloway only a couple of days ago, a lot of people like to tell us that there's an increasing issue about there being a supposed threat to democracy, including... Right, okay, sorry, now we're back. Okay, so after all this, I think it's time we actually found out a little bit more about who George Galloway is and why he hates the Prime Minister. So let's do into... because obviously I'm going to just sort of like go over like a really generalized overview over the beginning, and we'll see where this takes us next. George Galloway, born 16th of August 1954, is a British politician, broadcaster and writer who has served as a Member of Parliament for Rochdale since last week. He has been the leader of the Workers' Party of Britain since he founded it in 2019, between 1987 and 2010, and between 2012 and 2015. Galloway served as MP for 4 constituencies, first for the Labour Party and later for the Respite Party, for the latter of which he joined in 2004 and led from 2013 until its dissolution in 2016. Not much respect there then. Galloway was born in Dundee in Scotland, and after becoming the youngest ever chair of the Scottish Labour Party in 1981. He was General Secretary for the London-based charity War on Want from 1983 until his election as MP for Glasgow Hillhead at the 1987 general election. In 2003, he was expelled from the Labour Party due to his prominent opposition to the Iraq War. In 2004, Galloway became a member of the Respite Party and then the party's leader by late 2013. He was elected as MP for Bethnal Green in Bow at the 2005 general election. After losing its neighbouring Poplar and Limehouse in 2010, he returned to the House of Commons after being elected at the 2012 Bradford West by-election. He lost his seat at the 2015 general election. After unsuccessfully standing as an independent candidate in 2 seats in the 2017 and 2019 general elections, Galloway founded the Workers' Party of Britain. He stood for the Workers' Party at the 2021 Batley and Spen by-election, finishing in 3rd place, and won the 2024 Rochdale by-election with a 39.7% of the vote. Which, despite what Farage was saying, it's nothing to be sneezed at, but I don't think it was the sort of landslide that I reckon that Farage was trying to make it out to be. Galloway testified to the United States Senate in 2005 over alleged illicit payments from the United Nations Oil for Food program against Ba'athist Iraq, among other international issues. Galloway has voiced his anti-Zionism and supports the Palestinians in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and was also involved in the Vivia Palestinia aid convoys to the Gaza Strip. He opposes India's role in the Kashmir conflict with Pakistan, and has voiced support for the insurgency in Indian-administered Kashmir. He voiced support for Jeremy Corbyn in the 2015 Labour leadership election and during Corbyn's leadership of the party. In the 2016 European Union membership referendum, he advocated a Leave vote campaigning with cross-party pro-Brexit organisation Grassroots Out. While before the 2019 European parliamentary election, he announced, for one time only, he would support Nigel Farage's Brexit party. He opposes Scottish independence and founded All for Unity, a party that campaigned on support for British unionism in the 2021 Scottish parliamentary election, where it captured 0.9% of the vote. He has defined himself as socially conservative. Galloway hosted the talk radio show The Mother of All Talk Shows between 2006 and 2010, and between 2016 and 2019 until his dismissal. He then broadcast on Russia Today from 13 to 22, defending Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, after which sanctions were imposed on Russian Today. Galloway's talk show has moved to social media platforms. And to this very day, he is now the MP for Rochdale. So that's just sort of like a very brief overview of George Galloway's career, his involvement in politics, who he stands for, some things that he stands for, although some things have been met with certainly in this climate, about some things who are very much against his opinion. For example, his support for Palestine is something that probably a lot of people, well, certainly the Express and the Daily Mail, seem to claim that this is like a threat to democracy, just because there are some people in this country who support things that the government does not support. And there was even a big thing on Radio 4 last night about, do we live in an authoritarian country where you will be threatened with police and you'll be threatened by MPs if you protest peacefully against things the government does not allow. Then again, considering what we've seen in Russia over the last couple of days with Navalny and the fact that people were being threatened not to attend his funeral, it didn't stop people attending en masse. Before we know it, ladies and gentlemen, because if things escalated, we could have had another Bloody Sunday on our hands and another martyr like Father Capon, which again you should look into that story. Father Capon was a fascinating man, and that's just what we know of Galloway as well. So we're going to actually move on to what he said yesterday in terms of I despise the Prime Minister, which may be another reason why Rishi Sunak is in panic, because somebody has just straight up said openly they really do not like Rishi Sunak. A lot of people don't like Rishi Sunak anyway, and remember, Rishi Sunak also got himself in hot water just last week owing to Lee Anderson's removal of the whip over Islamophobic comments he made towards Mayor of London Sadiq Khan. The fact that Lee Anderson is obviously not going to apologise for what he did, and Rishi Sunak is not going to condemn Lee Anderson for his behaviour, which only seems to suggest that either Sunak fundamentally agrees or he doesn't really understand what the problem is. Furthermore, Sunak even went on record to say that the country is being ruled under what he calls mob rule, which I've mentioned this before, but fear of the mob is a superstitious fear. It's fundamentally rooted in the idea that there is some fundamental and even catastrophic difference between the rich and the poor, when, once again, when you really think about it, there is no such difference. The differences between rich and poor are only by incomes and basically nothing else. The mob is in fact loose now in the form of fat, rich businessmen who will do everything they can to make sure their power stays with them forever. So let's move on to what George Galloway has to explain about despising the Prime Minister. Here we go.
I'm standing here at George Galloway's campaign headquarters. George Galloway, did you just watch the Prime Minister's speech?
I didn't watch it, but I understood the first part of it related to the Rochdale by-election.
The Prime Minister has just said that the election of you to Parliament is beyond horrifying. What do you say to that?
Well, I can understand how disappointed he is about the by-election. The Conservative Party, which is the government of the country, was crushed, not just by me, but by an independent candidate that no one had ever heard of before outside of Rochdale. So it was a disastrous night for the Conservatives and a disastrous night for Labour. I got more votes than Labour and the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats and the Reform Party put together, which adds up to a pretty crushing rejection of the two-party system. So I understand why he's alarmed.
I want you to address some of the specifics that the Prime Minister said about you this evening. He said that you backed Hezbollah. Is that true?
I don't know what that means, backed Hezbollah. I oppose Israel's occupation of Lebanon, and I respect the right of people in occupied territory to resist their occupier. And I've done so since Hezbollah was formed and Israel occupied much of Lebanon, right up to the Litani River, regularly bombing Beirut and so on. So I'm not sure what business that is of his, because you see,
Hezbollah are a terrorist organization.
Actually, they're part of the government of Lebanon, a country with which we have sovereign diplomatic...
You see, without knowing too much of it myself, I will certainly say one thing that is actually really, really interesting is the way that they actually articulate it to the things that are factual. Some people will say they are this, when in reality they could be this. And that's actually very... I think even if both sides may be in the wrong, I will say what I do like about Galloway is the fact that again, it's not a good idea to actually target people who know what they're talking about. And I don't know if it's just Galloway is very, very relaxed. He's very composed, and he's just very much in it for himself. It doesn't really come across he's in it for himself. He's trying to explain it, and unfortunately, it's a huge issue with this country is the fact that even when we're told what the facts of the matter are, people will say, no, we're not going to believe in facts. We'll just make up what we want. We'll say what we want to keep people happy and establish the status quo, or what we say the status quo is. So I don't know what it is. I kind of like just the way he's trying to explain it, if that makes sense.
Relations. I had this debate with Sky's Anna Botting in 2006. It's quite an epic clip. You should watch it. More than 100 million people have. They said all these things about me in the by-election. And in the by-election, it was them that got crushed in the democratic process. So I'm not sure why he would reheat it now.
The Prime Minister is saying
talk
that
as if this is God. We're talking about little Rishi Sunak in the fag end of his prime ministership. Don't talk to me as if he's come down from the mount with tablets of stone. The things that he says are somehow meant to awe me. They may awe you, they don't awe me.
A lot of people have just watched what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said. Well, he says that there are forces here at home trying to
I've said this before, and I know what you're going to say as well. PM, democracy is being deliberately undermined. This is coming from the mouth of a man who was brought into power not through a general election, but with an election within his own party. How can you say that? Why are you upset that this apparently is being brought up now? Is it because Rishi Sunak knows that the Tory party is heading for a 97 wipeout? In fact, I say it is because he knows they're heading for a wipeout, because 14 years, ladies and gentlemen, 14 years of where we are and what has happened. Is it no? And Rishi Sunak is like up in arms about anyone going to anybody else thinking that democracy is being undermined. But, well, you've had 14 years, Sunak. Your party has had time to work to make things better, and it hasn't. So what are you doing complaining now that democracy is being undermined? Whose fault is that?
tear us apart. He is implying
if the Conservatives were absolutely fundamental in what they were doing, they would have annihilated Galloway and Labour and the Independents and the Lib Dems in the election in Rochdale. You know that. I know that. Why is Sunak just in denial at this point? That's it is. He is, again, once again, just like Johnson, Sunak will be remembered as the Prime Minister who severely overestimated his authority and severely underestimated his quarry.
A divisive figure. You have run an election campaign that has tried to appeal, particularly, not entirely, to one section of the community.
Who won the election? Me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the Democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people.
By this point, George Galloway has gathered a crowd, and I don't think they're very impressed with this reporter from Sky News saying that Sunak is someone special. Oh dear me, I think Galloway has I don't know. Hey, listen, I'm not from Rochdale, but you know what? Galloway has done something actually, you know what? Again, Galloway's beliefs may be, again, not condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine is one thing, absolutely. But it's very interesting how even that conflict has been shelved in the middle of the conflicts between Israel and Hamas. It's very, very interesting how we forget one thing one moment and only bring it up again if it's absolutely it's necessary to patronize some of these comments. But again, well, let's see how this goes. Let's see what happens next.
Like you and the people that have supported you,
I have just
and they have pointed out that you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not be the winner.
That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Why are there people on the streets worried?
There may be people who didn't vote for me who are worried.
Also, question, where are they then? If Sky News is going to present us to the case that there are people on the streets worried, well, show us clips of the streets. Go on then, show us, give us evidence, give us proof, something that we can tangibly say, maybe there are people who are concerned, but you know what? Well, where are they then? Come on, provide evidence. If I went to court and say that somebody stole from me, and I had pictures proving that people broke into my house, and the judge asked me, well, where are the photographs? And I didn't provide them. Do I have any evidence? No, I don't.
The majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening
we had this
slogans.
Conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep
statement.
telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister. And guess what? Millions and millions and millions of people in this country despise the Prime Minister. I don't respect the Prime Minister at all.
What are you planning to do next week when you arrive in Parliament?
Well, I'm meeting the Speaker on Monday morning, and then I'll be introduced and sworn in. I'll be escorted by the Right Honourable David Davis MP, former Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know why he would do that if he thought I was the kind of man you're clearly implying that I am. David Davis is one of the great parliamentarians of today and this age. And I'll be taking my seat in the House of Commons and speaking for the people of Rochdale. That's what I was elected to do.
And what is your message also to Keir Starmer?
My message to Keir Starmer is that the skids are under you in scores of Labour seats up and down the country, because you've lost the trust, you've lost the confidence.
Yeah, you know what? Listen, as a hard Labour voter, I will actually say it is a bit concerning. You know what? I talk a lot about the Conservatives and having 14 years to put things right. Labour has had just as much time to actually try and present the case that they are the better ones in charge. And I know that I think Galloway even mentioned that they're basically two cheeks of the same arse. Well, you know what? If Labour were in a position where they weren't going to be referred to as this, they would have put something into place, maybe something a bit more radical, maybe something that actually would have worked economically and socially, and something that would have been so polar the opposite. I suppose the problem is that Labour, they need to... I've said for a very long time anyway, for like 3 years now, that the feeling of the moment right now is not to be pro-Labour, but to be anti-Tory. And you could say this is possibly one of the results of this hypothesis. But people need to be pro-Labour. But it's not on other people to decide that they're just going to vote Labour just because they don't want to vote Conservative. Labour have to put the case for it to be pro-Labour, and to be anti-Tory. That's what the feeling has got to be. And unfortunately, I'm not necessarily convinced at this case anymore. And you know what? I think that's an issue. If you can't convince me the reason to still vote Labour, despite what I know because of the current situation right now, that's an issue. You've got to really give it to me that Labour is the only course of action. That's what has got to be done. And unfortunately, I'd say, to be honest, looking at it now, I'm not really convinced anymore. I'm sorry, but you know what? You're going to have to try harder. I'll still vote Labour, but I'll only vote it for the reasons that I know, the reasons what I think a Labour Party should be. Maybe that's more wish fulfillment, and maybe there are more people within the Labour Party that I'm unaware of that actually probably hold stronger feelings to me. And once again, do I think Labour is going to win the next election? Yes. Do I think they're going to win it with Sir Keir Starmer? Somewhere between I'm not sure and no. So it's very, very skeptical about if Starmer can actually do it.
Of millions of your traditional loyal voters.
Now we have now had an election where two of the candidates have alleged intimidation. The Prime Minister referenced that intimidation in his address on the steps of...
to the Prime Minister as if that's supposed to impress me. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister is a rather diminutive, diminished and degraded politician. He made a party political statement. I don't care about Rishi Sunak's attitude. What I care about is that the returning officer, a man of unimpeachable integrity, I'm sure you'll agree, declared it a free and fair election, and me as the winner, and Rishi Sunak as one of the crushed two big parties in the state.
So why are two candidates?
Keep repeating the same questions to me because I have other people to talk to. So let's make this the last one, shall we?
We got a party to deal with.
Allegations of intimidation, allegations that your supporters intimidated other candidates.
What times you've said that? The returning officer declared it last night. You were there as a free and fair election, and me as the winner.
And the Electoral Commission today have said that they're going to look and talk to the parties.
You have to just suck it up. I won the election.
George Galloway.
Actually, I'll just let this finish.
Thank you very much indeed. That was George Galloway with his supporters now shouting bye-bye. Live on Sky News with his first reaction to the address by the Prime Minister. You can see some of the reaction to the way that George Galloway has responded to the Prime Minister's speech, to that extraordinary Friday night address on the steps of Downing Street. And you can see some of the atmosphere that I think the people of Rochdale have experienced themselves during this by-election over the last few days.
Whistle politics from our establishment politicians.
And you can see the febrile atmosphere and the anger in this room about an hour.
They're not angry at Galloway, they're angry at you, Sky News. They're angry that they want to shove Rupert Murdoch's empire out of the door. This is a changing of the guard. And you know what? Supposing Rishi Sunak decides to do something extremely unprecedented. Imagine this goes to a committee, the 1922 committee, the 1874 committee, the 1066 committee. Supposing they were to reverse this decision and there had to be another by-election, I reckon George Galloway would win by over 50%. Because whether they like it or not, it's going to be a system in which Rishi Sunak says, you know what, no, doesn't count, we're going to have another one, and Galloway wins again. What's that going to mean for the rest of the country then? The power is in... This is, once again, ladies and gentlemen, the power is in your hands. You are the ones who will decide this, not the Prime Minister.
Before a rally, a victory party for George Galloway's election is due to start. And you can hear the raw emotion addressed at other politicians and at others that criticise them. I think you've got in this room a flavour of the politics right now in Rochdale that this constituency has been witnessing for the last few weeks. This will, I think this, and you can see the way that And that, I think, sums up some of the campaigning that we have seen in Rochdale over the last few weeks.
Yeah, they were not liking that, not one bit. And you know what? It really has said quite a lot right now, ladies and gentlemen, that the situation, whether or not people like to admit it or not, let's just be completely honest right now. I think the people have made up their decision because you know what? Some people literally will say that literally, yes, the fundamentals are between what's going on in between Israel and Palestine. I don't exactly know what you're going to do, unfortunately, if people literally say that, you know what, thousands of people want Palestine freed. But you know what I think is actually really interesting? If it were my position, it's, you know what, but there is absolutely also no reason whatsoever to intimidate others for what they believe, because they were talking a little bit more about like Lebanon and stuff like that. But remember, it's not just people who are Palestinians who you know, it's not people anti-Semitism comes in. Could come from anywhere in the world. It could come from any amount of people who worship whatever. It's not something that just starts and stops with one particular group, if that makes sense. But what I'll say again, just to end this right now, is the fact that whether or not people like it or not, this is what's happened. And whether or not the Prime Minister likes it or not, people are making their voices heard, and their voices are louder, and more people are gathering to this, because you know what, they want Rishi Sunak gone, and Rishi Sunak this isn't going to be the last of it. I know Rochdale isn't just the first seat that Rishi Sunak's lost, but you know what, so it'll be one seat, then it'll be another, then it'll be another, and then another, and then another, and before you know it, the entire country has completely turned their backs on Rishi Sunak. And again, Rishi Sunak will have nobody else to blame because he'll be the one in charge. And he had the opportunity. He had every chance he made to turn things around. And all he can say is that it's not me, it's them. It's not me, it's them. Because of what you people did, democracy is at threat because somebody voted that was not from the Conservatives. I don't really know at this point what I'm supposed to say, but you know what? Again, Rishi Sunak is not Moses. He is not Jesus. He is not Jacob, Joshua, David, Isaiah, Jonah. He's not any of those people. Rishi Sunak is Rishi Sunak. And at the end of the day, Rishi Sunak, like I said, is Rishi Sunak. Unelected, non-dom, unequipped, ill-equipped, unresponsible, unaccountable, unresponsive, irresponsible, and a failure, and the last nail in the 14-year coffin of the Conservative Party. Take that for what you will, ladies and gentlemen, because I think, like I said, this is not going to be the end of it, and best of luck to Rishi Sunak, because he is going to need it, just me, especially if even David Davis is willing to escort Galloway to Parliament. Interesting. So I'll see all of you guys again next time. Take care.